So I just recently took the cheapest cruise vacation that I could find in the United States. And the cruise ship that I happened to be sailing on just happened to be the oldest cruise ship within the Carnival Cruise Line fleet. Now, I have to admit, I had a great time. However, I dealt with two situations while on board. The first one, I almost got into a fight with an elderly man. It wasn't my fault. And I also got accused of hating black people, but I'll explain later in the video. Now, the cruise ship that I will be sailing on would be the 25-year-old Carnival Paradise. And I was excited because not only was it my first time sailing on an older Carnival cruise ship as a passenger, it would also be my first time sailing out of my hometown. I will be completing a 5-day Western Caribbean sailing out of Tampa, Florida. The total came out to $307. However, before port taxes and fees, it was originally $100 per person. However, there is something known as the supplement fee. Cruise lines normally book double occupancy, which means if I pay for myself, unless I have a solo cabin or a solo option on board, I have to pay for myself and the invisible man or woman that's next to me, which is kind of weird to think about. But anyway, total came out to $307. However, there was a promo which I didn't know about, in which they would give you onboard credit that was equivalent to what you initially paid for the booking. So I had $200 of onboard credit, which to me brings everything back down to about $100 or $21 per day, which I thought was pretty cool. Upon arrival to the cruise port, the first thing I did was check in my bag. However, I made sure all of the information was correct. I documented everything. I even gave the porter, the bag handler, the biggest tip that I could to have some reassurance that the bag would make it where it needed to be. Now, there was only one ship in port at that time, so I knew there was no chance of it getting anywhere else or getting lost or misplaced, because all the bags that were there at that port were only going towards one ship. I had a situation previously in the past recently, and well, things didn't exactly work out. But anyway, it's all water under the bridge now. Overall, the embarkation process was effortless and it was extremely smooth. Then I met a nice gentleman that I guess they call the captain. He ended up bumping me to VIP status. So Carnival has a loyalty program known as the very important fun person. They really need to change that. Anyway, it's a loyalty program. So the captain allowed me to go into what's known as the platinum line. That is the creme de la creme, the top tier. So I was able to skip the regular line and go ahead and get checked in and board at an expedited process. So with that in mind, I do have to say thank you, Captain, if you end up watching this video. I appreciate you. Now, when I finally did board the Carnival Paradise, I have to admit I was a little caught off guard by the overall look and design of the ship at first glance. The look was very tacky but original, and I can't explain why, but there was something about it that I actually liked. The ship had gone through a ton of refurbishments and what you would call a refit at one point in time in 2018, where they put some more up-to-date and modern touches on the ship. However, there were some parts of the ship that really looked nice and up-to-date, and others not so much. After a very awkward muster drill, I was free to walk around and explore the Carnival Paradise. And one thing I like to do when I get on board a cruise ship is try to get a lay of the land, get a feel for the vibe, the energy, the people that are on board. And one thing that became very apparent to me very quickly when I was exploring the ship was that the vast majority of passengers on board this seasoned cruise ship were either first-timers or, well, they were your average Joes. And I don't mean this in a bad way. It just became obvious because I heard a lot of questions repeatedly being asked. Very basic questions like, what is a muster drill and why isn't the casino opened yet? Once we sailed away and started our cruise, I have to admit, as usual, I enjoy Carnival Cruise Line sail away parties. There is no other cruise line that does a sail away like Carnival. The first thing they like to do is establish that we're all a family for this short time, and well, we're here to party or we're here to relax, but at the end of the day, we're all here to just kind of share each other's space and energy and stuff like that. Not in a spiritual way. That just sounds weird. I mean it in the sense that, well, they want people to just hang out and enjoy and have a great vacation. There were dancers and I danced a little bit, and it was just overall a great time. When it came to my room, it was nothing out of the ordinary, and I can't say I was surprised. It was everything that I thought it would be. A very basic but functional room. The only thing that I didn't like was the shower curtain. I don't know, I'm spoiled these days because when I'm on the newer ships, they usually have like a glass door. I have trauma from back when I worked on cruise ships. Usually we have what's called a Jack and Jill cabin, and it has a shoilet where the shower and toilet are like a hybrid combined together, and you share that between yourself and the person next door. And well, just imagine all that dirt and grime and skin just kind of sticking onto the shower curtain. I don't even want to talk about it anymore. Let's move on. I was surprised at the amount of activities to do on board for this smaller, older ship, like the slides. There were pools, there were hot tubs, there were adult-only areas. Dr. Seuss and Thing 1 and 2 were present and accounted for some reason. There were dance events multiple times a day. There were comedians at night. There was salsa dancing, mini golf. There was a nightclub that was pretty nice. I was just surprised at the amount of variety on board this smaller ship. When it came down to the food, I have to admit, I was not impressed. However, I was not disappointed either. Everything was overall as expected. They had the main dining room. The food there was decent. They also had like dinner and a show. They also did this on the newer Carnival ship that I was on a year ago, the Carnival Mardi Gras. They also had a pizza place. The pizza was, I was surprised. That was fairly decent. They have like a sandwich shop. They have a hamburger spot, Guy's Burgers. They have a burrito spot to go over to. They have your average food, and it's not anything that's going to exactly blow you away. When it came down to the entertainment and shows, I'll talk more on some of it a little bit later on in the video, just getting the basics out of the way. The shows were okay. However, I do have my gripes coming from an entertainment background. So now that we got all the basic stuff out of the way, let's get to some of the good stuff. And by good stuff, I mean some of the drama that I had to deal with while I was on board the Carnival Paradise. So we unfortunately had a rainy morning whenever we had our first port of call over in Cozumel, Mexico. Now, I typically do like cruise news and let everybody know what's going on in the industry. However, I didn't want to record the news in my room because the lighting in there wasn't the greatest and the room itself was uneventful. So I tried to just try to give some depth and some character to my videos by going outside and doing the videos. And I try to go to places where people weren't at. Now I found a spot because I was getting rained on and everything and nobody was over in the section. I was recording a video and there was a man that walked all the way from the opposite side of where I was, which is the smoking area, and came over. And once he came over to me, he got into like the frame of my camera as I was setting up and told me that he didn't want to be filmed. I've told some of you this story already, but I thought he was joking. I legitimately thought he was. I'm hanging out with him. He's like, you work for the cruise line? I'm like, no, I don't work for the cruise line. He was like, okay, I don't want to effing be filmed. Starts cussing at me, walking up to me, like basically getting in my face. But thankfully, some other passengers saw the whole conundrum, what was going on. They came over and started talking to the man and basically instructing them to just leave me alone because it looked to them and to me as well that he intentionally went out of his way to kind of give me some problems. Now, I would never hit an old man, but I'm going to tell you right now, if somebody tries to get into my face and they try to do violence or anything like that, I'm definitely going to defend myself to the best of my ability. Who knows? For all we know, that man could have been a kung fu master. I don't know, but he was a grumpy man for sure. I want to say probably in his 80s, but thankfully that problem got resolved fairly quickly. Now this next one is the one that really caught me off guard and honestly made me feel some kind of way. So I'll be honest with all of you, being on an older ship, there were, like I said, a lot of apparently new people on board. They weren't used to seeing like a cruise blogger, somebody like me. A lot of people did recognize me, made some great friends, took a lot of pictures. However, I did hear a lot of people every now and then whenever I was recording saying, you know, little whispers like, oh, this guy thinks he's big and bad. He thinks he's famous or whatever. He probably doesn't even have any followers on YouTube. Because I understand full well, a lot of people just aren't used to that kind of thing, especially on a vacation. So anyway, that same day that I had the situation with the older man, I got back on the ship from visiting Cozumel, and I was upstairs having a drink over by the pool, right? I'm on like the level up from the pool, right? I'm just kind of looking over and just getting a lay of the land, right? A black man comes up to me. He says, hey, look, I don't mean to disturb you. And he was very respectful, very professional as well when he spoke. And I thought it was cool, you know? He goes, yeah, so this isn't coming from me. But I just want to let you know what's going on as far as the rumors around the ship, because I've just been hanging out with a lot of people on board. And apparently all the black people are saying that you are not hanging out with any of the black people. Now, my first thought when I heard that, again, just like the older man, originally I thought he was joking about that, right? Because I knew full well that everybody on that ship had seen me running around like a chicken with my head cut off, by myself with my camera gear, running back and forth, doing all my filming and recording. So I asked him if he was serious. He's like, yeah, they're saying that every time they see you, you're either by yourself or you're with some white people. And I'm like, you know what? First of all, I have to make this clear too, guys. I wasn't raised in a way to really see when it comes to black and white. I'm not going to say I don't see color, and I'm not going to say I don't judge. Naturally, as humans, we are going to naturally judge on a surface level, but I do believe in treating everybody the same and not judging everybody on a harsh way based off of the color of their skin. I recognize I'm a black man. I recognize somebody's white and Puerto Rican, whatever, Asian, Caucasian, doesn't matter, right? But I mean in the sense that I try to treat everybody equally because it's what they deserve. Unless they disrespect me or give me some reason to not give them the same amount of respect, well, you know, I don't see any different. But anyway, this guy is talking to me and he's saying, yeah, man, they're saying that there's some white people you've been hanging out with since the beginning of the cruise. And I simply told him, I said, you mean those people over there? Because they happen to be nearby. I said, you know, they're fans of the channel. They support my YouTube channel, and I've been hanging out with them because I always say if it wasn't for those people, I wouldn't have what I have. And I truly believe that. Now, the thing about me is that I don't intentionally go out of my way. If you guys ever see me on a cruise ship, unless I recognize you, know you from someplace else, I'm probably not going to run up and just kind of start a cold conversation with you because I know myself. My dad had the gift of gab. I have the gift of gab, meaning I talk a lot. And I know that if I start a conversation with somebody, and I know if it's somebody that's supporting my YouTube channel, I will not leave them alone. I will keep on talking. So for me, for the betterment of myself and the things that I have to do, I typically don't start conversations with people unless I happen to be in the vicinity and I already know them. So when it came to this situation, I told the guy, I said, so they're saying all of this, and they haven't come up to talk to me once. They recognize from the channel, I'm assuming. They're like, yeah, they said you're like a YouTuber, some type of cruise ship reviewer, and you're not talking to them. I'm like, well, have they come up and talked to me? You know, I believe it's the same thing with people trying to communicate with the phone or message somebody, right? It works both ways. If you are not communicating with me, and I'm not saying that they're all in the wrong here, but I also don't run around starting up dry conversations with people often because like I said, I know myself. Either way, nonetheless, I ended up just kind of doing my own thing. I had interviews and I talked to a bunch of black people. I want to make that clear. Like, I don't discriminate by any means. I talked to so many people on board between the interviews and everything else, and I had a great time. But other than that, I want to say that was the only set of bad experiences that I had on board. Now, I will say this before somebody takes this out of context. I do not think that I am better than anybody else just because I have a following on social media. To me, that means nothing aside from the fact that I am thankful for the people that are willing to listen to my content and, well, have supported me for as long as they have. But anyway, I did have a really cool moment. It was very, very nice. It was a couple named John and Sue. Not only did they buy me a brand new hat, it was absolutely amazing. It was so cool. They bought it for me while our ship was over in Grand Cayman. And then after that, because we ended up just kind of magically running into each other again after like an hour later at my room, they got my room number and they sent some chocolate covered strawberries to my room. So John and Sue, if you're out there, if you end up watching this, once again, I appreciate the fact that you did that for me. And I will be taking your hat over to Europe for my sailing on board Carnival's new ship, the Carnival Celebration. So here's some overall takeaways, some pros and cons of my experience on board the Carnival Paradise. I want to say the Wi-Fi was definitely top tier, and I was legitimately surprised about that. I've been on a lot of newer cruise ships like the NCL Prima this year alone, and it does not even compare. The Carnival Paradise Wi-Fi blew the NCL Prima out of the water. It was about 80 bucks, but keep in mind it was for a 5-day cruise, but still not bad. However, if you don't want to use the Wi-Fi, they do have something called the chat. I don't know if it's called the Carnival chat or just the chat, but for $5 for the whole cruise, in the event that you don't want to purchase the Wi-Fi, you can use the chat to communicate with everybody that you're with on board or friends that you might meet. And this is $5 for the entire cruise. The only downside to it is that you have to keep the app open in order to communicate with everybody as well as receive notifications. So that part sucks. I also like the comedians on board. I always say that Carnival has some of the best comedians out there, but this is a preference for me. Now, aside from, let's say you might get a comedian every now and then with Carnival for the adult shows that is just a straight up party mouth cussing like a sailor for no reason at all. There's no punchline. They're just saying slurs and words just to get it out. I would say that usually they hire some pretty decent guys that don't have a filter, and I absolutely love it. But again, just my opinion. Also, I want to argue that the venues, I don't know what Carnival and the rest of the newer ships are doing now with these smaller venues. I don't know why this is a thing, but if you look at the older ships, the venues are nice and big, and they were utilized for multiple things. Maybe that's why they were bigger, but maybe the cruise line should consider going back to that with the bigger venues. As far as the cons, I want to say that I get so sick and tired of announcements every 5 minutes on board Carnival ships. And every 5 minutes, they're giving you a full breakdown of everything that happens that day. Look, everybody gets the paper, everybody has the app, everybody knows what's going on. Carnival, we don't need a full breakdown every second of every day. It's times like that that make me miss Virgin. Aside from maybe an emergency or maybe instructions for embarkation and disembarkation, on the adult-only cruise line Virgin voyages, you don't hear much of anything ever, and I think it is absolutely amazing. Unfortunately, the app was also glitching a lot too. I don't know how many times I had to close the app and reset it. Other than that, everything else is pretty good when it came to the app. And then finally, we got to talk about the shows. Look, I just want to say one thing. Because I understand, like, Carnival, it is kind of like, it can be considered the budget. I always say maybe the Walmart of the sea. However, the show quality is okay for what it actually is, except for one thing. On board the Carnival Paradise, look, whoever's listening, if you are going to do Michael Jackson, for the love of God, you gotta do it right. There is no shortcuts there. Either you do it well or you don't do it at all. I'm sorry. Look, check this out. Just look. Where did you come from, baby? Like, ooh, won't you take me there right away? Won't you be there? Anyway, the disembarkation process or getting off the ship was also extremely smooth, and well, overall the ship was great, and I would gladly do it again. Well, in fact I am, except I believe I have, instead of the United States, I have found potentially the cheapest cruise in the world, and this is without any type of promotion or any type of loyalty points or the casino giving it away. I found a cruise on board a Carnival ship, the Carnival Conquest, that is going to be $13 a day. Now, I will have a review video up on that one as early as next week before I go on the brand new Carnival celebration. If you want to watch all of my vlogs real time, make sure you go check out my other channel, Jay the Nomad, as well as if you want early access to my videos, make sure you check out my Patreon. All of that is in the link in the description box below. Let me know what you think about all this, guys. I hope you enjoyed my review of the Carnival Paradise cruise ship. I had such a fun time, except for the 2 incidences that I dealt with. I appreciate all of you. I love all of you, and I'll see you in the next one. Take it easy.